Welcome, everybody. This is the Town of Somers Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. The date is November 19th, 2019. Denise, would you please take the roll?
Ms. DiPolito?
Present.
Mr. Gio?
Here.
Mr. Harden?
Here.
Mr. Lansky?
Present.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Chairman Canestra?
Here.
Thank you.
I'd ask everybody stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. First item on the agenda this evening is of, I believe the name is Noreen McCardle and Michael Schwarzschild. This is an application for a front yard area variance of 11.8 feet for a two-car garage addition and a 4.3 foot for a covered porch to a pre-existing non-conforming one-family dwelling in an R10 residential district at 69 Lovell Street, Mayapack. Is someone here to represent the applicant? Okay. Good. I'm sorry, we would ask you just to go to the microphone after you get that standing up. Hopefully it'll...
Go down a little lower.
Yeah.
Next.
There you go.
That'll be fine. Yeah, you can lower that. Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Stephanie Fox. I'm the architect for Noreen and McCardle and Michael Schwarzschild. This evening, as you mentioned, the application before you is about two front yard variances located at 69 Lovell Street. The first variance that we are requesting is an 11.8 foot front yard variance in order to construct a new 27 foot wide by 21 foot deep attached two-car garage to an existing non-conforming residence. The size of the garage is, the 21 foot depth is actually the least depth that is really a usable amount for a garage. That provides an interior dimension of 20 feet with an exterior build-out dimension of 21 feet. Currently, the homeowners park on a concrete pad. It's listed on your survey. And you can also see in the pictures that I provided how the cars park and how close they are actually to Lovell Street. In order to leave the property, they have to back up onto Lovell Street, and it's rather dangerous condition. By adding the garage, obviously that would alleviate that condition and you know, make it less dangerous for my clients. There's also some site hardships that exist on the property, causing the reason why we located the garage where it is. To the north of the property, near, in this area here, is where the septic fields are and the septic tank. So that's not a feasible location for the garage. Also, you can tell by maybe you can tell by the topography and also by the pictures that there's about a 7 foot drop from the front of the property to the rear of the property down near the lake. There's a pretty extensive retaining wall that starts just about right here on the property. That's where that 7 foot drop is. You can also see it probably from the side elevation as well. So by locating the garage where it is, basically we get to maintain that concrete drive-in and just extend the retaining wall a little bit, and the walls of the garage will actually act as its own retaining wall and really minimize the amount of site disturbance and things like that on the site. Additionally, located right here on the site, to the south of the residence is the existing wellhead. Westchester County Department of Health requires that there's a minimum 10-foot setback requirement from any new construction. We're actually locating the new garage at 11 feet. That's also so that we can maintain this window here on the south elevation. And obviously, one of the biggest considerations is the lake. We know that, my client obviously bought the property for the lake, knowing that, it's going to have restrictions because of wetlands and things like that, but we really want to limit the impact on the lake. Another item just to mention, in your packet, I've included some aerial maps and some of the Westchester GIS mapping. It seems that along Level Street, there's a few properties that are also very close, if not much closer, to the property line than what we're requesting. And these properties are actually located in the R1 district, which means that obviously their front property setback requirement would be greater than what the R10 setback requirement would be. So they're actually, less conforming than what we would be requiring. The second variance that we're requesting is to create a covered porch that extends.
Yes, you
Yes.
can. That'd be great. That should slide towards you, just like that.
I feel like a talk show host now. Okay. Would be a covered porch that extends from the garage to this existing stone bump-out structure. It's just this roof area here. Now, the existing home is non-conforming in itself, so we wouldn't be extending the porch beyond the line of the existing home, but since the home is non-conforming, then we would need a 4.3 front yard variance there. There's an existing patio already in existence. It's basically just extending the roof. We'd replace the roof over the existing part of this building, just to sort of obviously tie everything in together. Probably need a post that's going to sit on the existing rock wall that's here. Just to sort of circle back, you can see sort of how the grade drops. This is the front over here on Level Street. This is the rear yard, and this is how the grade slopes from the rear. Another thing just to mention is that included in your packet is a site design plan from Rob Wasp. He's a site engineer that we've engaged. My client is very much interested in improving the overall property of the site. There's significant amount of water issues on the site. I don't know if you can see it in the aerial of the property, but on the south side here, this is actually all drainage that comes off of the hill from the and goes into the lake. And so sometimes it always doesn't go into the lake. Sometimes it comes here.
Little flooding or something there?
Yeah. So he's doing, so we're addressing the entire site, and obviously as part of that, we're also addressing whatever additional drainage, runoff and things like that would be created from the new garage and thing with a rain garden. And so that's going to be done, obviously, in coordination with the engineering department. We'd need planning board approval, and then with Lake Lincolndale. It's funny because pretty much almost all the way through the design process, my client got the note from Lake Lincolndale about the sewer system. And so they were like, wait a minute, is there somewhere else we can put the garage since we're going to get the sewers? And so I did do an analysis for that because I said, well, maybe we can put it over here because the septic system's going to be gone. But it kind of turns out that way it's not going to be attached to be able to be attached to the house. With the grinder pump and everything like that, I think that it would actually be more of a variance required because of the side yard requirement there and the positioning of the existing elements of the house, that it would probably require a greater variance if I were to locate it on this side down the road if they go through with the sewer system there. So it was more of a what if kind of thing. I think that's about it.
Now, I do have a couple questions, and Tommy, you'd be able to help me with the answers, hopefully. You mentioned about the additional rainwater or impervious surfaces. You mentioned about the rain gardens. Okay, would they be adequate enough to handle the additional flow? I mean, that's be coming off the roof line?
If this board approves the variance, the applicant would then have to go to the planning board, and they would look at all of those stormwater mitigation plans that are being proposed with the project.
Okay, so then it would go through the proper process to make sure that there would be no additional contaminations going into the lake.
The planning board would review that thoroughly.
I notice the planning board has to look at this after us. Why are they, what's caused that?
Steve and I spoke from the planning department. It needs both boards' approvals, which one you want to go for first. And this is less of a financial burden on the applicants. They need both boards' approvals. So if they don't get the variance, there's no sense in spending money on going to the planning board and vice versa. So it's...
Okay, that's why they're coming here first.
It's a lesser challenge.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll need full stormwater approval, we'll need wetlands permits, things like that in order to do any sort of construction.
That's why planning board's involved here.
Yes.
So
You're outside the 100-foot buffer from the wetlands here, aren't you?
I don't think so.
no, that's the reason why. It
Oh,
would
so
be
there would- so the-
administrative through the planning department. It's the planning board application.
But the other thing with this location is that it's pretty much as far away as we can get from the lake that's really feasible.
Okay.
So that we can really limit the impact that we can have on the lake as well.
So
So
you're-
it's kind of, we're trying to sort of best of both worlds kind of situation, you know, make it so that there's no impact on the lake, and also make it so that it's, you know, less of an impact on the, as little impact on the entire site, really, you know.
Okay, I'm sorry. Other than the planning board being involved in this, the lake association will be informed, or have they been informed regarding all of this?
I believe there's a notification by making application to the planning board to notify
I
them.
don't think there's deed restrictions.
There's
but
been a
that's-
sign in front of the residents for this here public hearing, and there'll be another one for the planning board, and you got one inquiry?
One
Was it
yesterday.
from a mailing or from?
It was
seeing
from
the
a
sign?
neighbor who
Okay.
got my public notice.
Okay.
Okay.
So we don't have to look at, so planning board is kind of the lead agency in regard to the environmental issues here?
Yes,
Okay, so do we still have a type 2 action then?
that's a good question.
Because, normally type 2 action means there's no environmental issues.
Right.
And we kind of do have an environmental issue, but I don't think it's going to be within our scope if planning board's going to look at this
Right.
as lead agency. I don't know how we,
And there's a potential that they may not get that approval. Therefore, if this board were to approve the application, it would have to stipulate it, pending
Pending.
approval of the planning board.
okay.
But it won't make any difference if we've given them the exceptions. They go to the planning board and they say no. I mean, that's the end of that.
Right.
The planning board could evaluate the environmental issues and think it's too severe or not, and might reject it at that point in time.
But I think Robert Wasp,
Yes.
the environmental engineer, I
That's
guess he feels he has a pretty good application, or you wouldn't be going forward with either board's approval.
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
I think you've done a nice job of tying the front of the structure in. It was existing a little ungainly with the covered porch, and I actually think the garage does a nice job architecturally of tying it together.
Thank you.
So,
Are you going to match siding on the garage and the house? Is the house going to be re-sided, or how's that going to work?
Well, to be perfectly honest, that's honestly going to come down to the budget with the land, because the site work is really such an integral part of, the site work is really what's the most important thing here, is to get that done properly, and they don't know what that number is going to come out. So there is not an intention right now to re-side the house to match the garage.
Okay.
I will say that. And there's not an opportunity to get the garage to match the house. But they're planning on doing probably just a simple hardy board, and they'll do it they'll have the color match and painted to match, but not probably the exposure or the material.
Not be exact. Because it looks, as far as the site work goes, if I'm looking at this correctly, this whole concrete pad has to be removed.
No, well, yes,
big-
because what.
Because you're going to replace it with a driveway, right?
Right,
Or is
well-
that going to be the driveway?
That will be the driveway, but what actually exists there is a pit.
Well,
So
I'm-
The
there's,
hatch?
there's a catacomb under there.
I was going to say, we see metal
We
hatch.
see the hatch.
I'm going to ask, what was
Yes.
that about?
It's a very interesting condition. And that also actually plays into the water problems that the house is having. So there's water just like, so yeah, I guess the guy who owned it beforehand was like a gearhead or whatever. And he made this car pit that he would take this hatch off and he would stand under it and work on his car. And
Okay.
Like a
But
quick lube.
now it's crumbling and it's, it's not waterproof properly and the water is running into the house and so we have to mitigate that issue.
What is the plan for the hatch?
Oh, it's gonna be removed.
I would assume it'd be
Yeah, it's
removed
gonna
and
be-
you're going to fill it in?
We're gonna waterproof everything, correct, yes.
Now, based on the information that you just brought to my attention and the rest of my board members, in the sense of he worked on his car. Now, is there going to be an environmental study on that soil for contamination?
It's a residential property.
But still, there could, no more than a 500-gallon oil tank being pulled out of the ground, they still check the sample of the soil. I would like to have that done.
It's not our purview. I mean, this is, our test here is just separate. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
then we can address it to the planning board, they can
Yeah,
address it.
yeah, of course. But that's, we're looking at whether the placement is correct, whether she had another place for the garage, right? Question with the window, question the site. So we're looking at the setback. The environmental issues, someone else is going to look at them all. I don't think that.
All right, but it's
goes
something
into the
that
variance.
should be addressed by
Yeah,
additional
of course.
boards.
And we can obviously condition approval on the planning board reviewing those. But
Well, they appear to be upfront with that information, so
Right.
that the next board they go to, assuming they'll be as
Open.
upfront with that information, I'm sure they'll take that under advisement.
Yeah.
Now, also with this garage, talking about additional site work, it looks like there is a slate stairs, a slate patio, some retaining walls. There's various things that are going to have to be removed
That's correct,
for where the garage will be.
correct.
Okay. So that'll have to be removed. You're going to have to resolve the metal hatch thing. And did you say you're taking out the concrete pad or not? Or that's just going to be the driveway to the garage? Is going to be
It will be the
replaced?
driveway to the garage, but obviously, a portion of it will have to be removed because of the existing underground concrete walls that are there for that hatch. And then it'll be filled in with, clean fill and compacted fill.
Right. They're not going to put macadam there instead of the concrete, or they're just going to leave the concrete?
Yeah, it'll probably be asphalt,
Probably be asphalt?
yeah.
Okay.
You mentioned the safety issue. They have to back out onto Level Street. So you envision with this garage, there's going to be room for them to back out of the garage and turn around, enter?
Not that, I will not say that's they probably won't be able to turn around, but the difference will be is that they'll be able to come out of the garage and be able to not be at the curb right when they're, have the car on. I mean, if you look at these pictures, that's my truck. That white line is the shoulder. Yeah, I mean, my truck is pretty much on the shoulder, So at least, at the very least, they'll be able to maybe, come out and see what's coming.
Maybe
each-
come out at an angle or something so they could maybe have a better view one way.
Wouldn't they
And
attempt to
same-
back into their garage? That's what they should do. I mean, I know people don't like to drive backwards, but
Right, that would
that's
be.
an obvious
Right.
solution to the problem.
I mean, I have a truck. They have two little Subarus, just basically because they can't fit anything else there.
Right.
They're not going to be able to turn around. There's just not, you know, enough room for that. But it'll obviously provide them a wider angle of view, and a safer condition. Thankfully, you know, there's nothing to their south here.
You mentioned the sewer district. Do you happen to know, is this property in, which is still yet to even be voted on, but is this in phase one?
Yes.
It is. So if the vote went through, this would be one of the first to be sewered.
That's why they said, wait, stop.
But you don't, but you didn't find a way that doing the garage, that doesn't give you any benefit.
Well, so, if looking at the site plan here, the real issue is the location really of where the septic comes out. So if you even look at the pictures, this is a stone front porch. It used to be a porch, so the septic doesn't really come out until back here, right? And so then, you know, that, from my understanding, is it has to come out 5 feet, then a grinder, then it's going to come forward. So at this location here is the dining room. Even for me to locate a garage, you know, I did some studies. If I located a garage here, we're talking like on the property line over here to avoid the grinder and the septic line and things like that. Then we, of course, we had the drop off in the back
So you'd require probably a variance for that as well.
And probably a greater one, just because of the proximity to the side yard.
Are there neighbors right on that side yard?
Yes, you can see it in the aerial.
To the north of the property, I see a neighbor. To the south?
There is none, because that's that easement that's coming off of, I'm sorry, what is it? That's what,
Okay. It looks like an empty lot there or something. Is it a lot or it's just a?
It's stormwater.
it's a stormwater.
No, is that what it?
Yeah, there's like a pond that I guess can get, you know,
Retention.
Well, like, oh.
catches
So
silt.
nothing could be built there. It's permanent the way it is.
Yeah.
I see. So it seems like there's just a property to the north. Okay. I assume that neighbor hasn't approached you and complained or issues or concerns? Nothing you're aware of?
No, and the next property is the one that's being rebuilt, the one beyond the empty lot. I don't know who that is. They're knocking down that house and rebuilding it
Okay.
further to the south.
Any other questions of the applicant before we go out to the public and see if anybody has anything to say on this? Did you have anything else you want to offer at this point in time? We'll probably come back to you, but
No,
anything
I don't
else?
think so.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody here wish to speak in regard to this application? No comments? No? Okay, no comments. Any additional questions of the applicant? Do we want to have some discussion amongst us? Feelings on this, issues, concerns? Tom, anything else that you think we haven't hit on this matter? I mean, have we covered the bases as far as you?
Yeah, I forgot about that little chamber thing, actually. We had a conversation. You know,
About that hatch thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of bizarre. I've never seen that before. Yeah, but certainly that would have to be addressed and resolved, and God forbid somebody fell down that thing or, you know, whatever. Yeah, so. You know, one thing you did mention, you said that for some reason this thing was affecting water to the house. It seems to be pretty far from the house. Even if it gathered water, why would it affect the house? I mean, is it connected to the house in some way?
Yes, there's a walkway into the basement.
Oh, is there really?
Yes.
So there's an underground passageway from that thing
Right.
to the house.
Right.
Wow.
So that's why I really don't think that there's any way that there's any contamination into the soil, because it's going into
Into their house.
the house.
So if you got rid of this, you're gonna have
There's no, it's not earth, it's all concrete, it's all.
So if you get rid of this thing, you're gonna have to basically put up where the doorway is, additional foundation wall, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, we're gonna close it all in,
Just, right, you're gonna get rid of this thing,
yes. Absolutely.
Do you have an alternate plan for how the husband's gonna escape?
There's 2 more back doors. Actually, there used to, you can see it in the pictures, there used to be a back door that I'm telling them that they should reinstate.
He might have been sneaking out of the house for years and nobody ever knew it.
What's in the basement?
I mean, it's honestly the most bizarre thing, and I don't know if the guy was a mason and a mechanic or what.
Yeah, I mean, I would just be concerned for safety reasons, someone falling down there or
Yeah.
someone entering the house.
Or
Yeah,
even,
I don't know how it's secured.
Even something, it'd be, would it collapse 5-10 years from now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or an animal getting in there, or
He
who
left
knows
the
what.
2 dogs
I'm
down
sure
there.
there's been,
Yeah.
wasn't
Well, I mean, I don't know, they're obviously, they're recent, owners, so I don't know who did this, I don't know,
Okay.
they obviously don't want it, because it's, they recognize the issue
Right.
right away, and they're like, we have to get rid of whatever this
Right.
is.
Yeah, I think,
Wow.
okay. That's a first. Never seen
Yeah.
that before.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they don't want to work on they don't want to work on their cars themselves. They'll go to Valvoline.
No.
The question is whether there's another location to put the garage, and given the fact that if it wants to be connected to the house and the way the land slopes and where the window locations are, I don't see another location for it.
I think it to be a reasonable location, and
Yeah.
plus I like the idea of getting the cars away from the edge of the road. I do like that idea, that they can go in the garage. I mean, it would be ideal if there was a little bit of a pivot where they could pivot the cars and then come out, but maybe like Bill said, maybe they can back in. That might be a better way to do it, just to get a better visibility. Of course, you're trying to,
I was just trying, I mean, this is the existing retaining wall here, which I was just planning on extending. I really didn't want to have them have to build out here so they could do that pivot. One, again, it's just more land disturbance, more impervious area, more,
Right.
because like I said, we're trying to do that balance between limiting the site disturbance and limiting the impact on the site and getting them something at least better than what they have,
Right.
Well, if you could find a way for them to do that, that would trade off safety for that, and I would do that trade-off if I was them, but that's up to them.
Yeah. I think that, like I said, just having them off the road, having that, because the retaining wall, it's not like it's going to be a knee wall or anything like that. They'll have that line of sight. Even, like you said, even if they do back in, they're going to have that cone of vision that's coming,
Right.
way out,
Yeah,
versus now it's like, what's coming?
Now, you were referring to a retaining wall. That is only for the footprint of the garage. There's not going to be any additional retaining wall?
Well, if you can see here on the,
Because my question is, if there is, what is the minimum height for a handrail?
Handrail?
A handrail?
oh, well, maybe we'd have to put a,
If the retaining wall is less than 20 inches, there wouldn't be a requirement for a handrail?
we could put a fence or something like that.
Well, you don't even,
30 inches.
30 inches.
30 inches.
So I don't think you're gonna get that over that distance, right? So,
Right, well, it does, it does slope gradually, and it depends on how they regrade at this corner. That's really where it is. So right here, where the curve occurs, is, it's kind of hard to see. So, we're gonna extend this retaining wall maybe 4 or 5 feet, and it's gonna butt into the corner of the garage. And then the garage walls are gonna act as their own retaining walls, as the land continues to slope.
No, that part I understand, but I was just curious of the height of the retaining wall. Where would the handrail come in effect height-wise?
30 inches or greater.
Okay, so it's going to be less than 30 inches, the retaining wall? Or close to it?
Close to it.
and Tom, of course, you're gonna do all inspections on this, and when they fill in this hatch thing, and put a new foundation wall in, or partial, this will all be subject to town inspections and the C of O and things like that.
Okay.
Well, we need a compacted grade, and things like that, because right now, the garage where the garage location is, there's no land. You know, basically, we're building the grade up
Right.
underneath the slab, so we need to compact that grade. Because we're making, obviously, the garage slab level with the street level, you know.
Right.
And beyond this point here,
Yeah, that patio and things is probably about 5 feet below street level, what if I'm
this
looking?
patio here?
Yeah.
No, that's,
No,
that,
no, the new patio you're putting in, I'm talking about the slate patio you're gonna pull out. Is that like
oh, yeah.
below?
Oh, yeah, that's all the way down.
That's
Correct.
below, right,
And
so that's gonna have to-
pretty much where, like you said, that's where the garage is going.
Right.
So all that needs to be filled, in order to, you know,
To
support.
make this work, right?
To support the slab of the garage.
Sure.
And, you know, I think you know, people were asking me, oh, you're gonna put a basement underneath it? I'm like, no, that's what we're trying to get rid of.
Right.
This is on slab, there's no second floor in the garage.
No.
Is there room for storage in the garage though, or anything like that? Maybe a little bit above there?
Maybe, but if anything, we'll put an attic ladder, and that's it.
Garage will have electricity?
Yes.
Any running water in the garage or bathrooms, anything like that in the
No.
garage? Nothing like that? Okay. Okay. Any additional questions of the applicant? One more chance. Anybody in the audience wish to speak in regard to this application? Any further comments from the board? Any questions, concerns, any discussion we want to have? No. Okay, I guess we're going to go to vote then. Now, as far as the type of action, are we just going to vote that, we're not going to vote the type of action and defer to the planning board
I think that's the way to go.
for the environmental issues, that they're going to address the 100-foot buffer, if there's a contamination issue, they'll address all,
Stormwater remediation.
they'll address all of the environmental issues so that we're not looking at that.
Okay.
Okay, so do we have a motion in regard to that, that we're going to defer to the planning board as far as the environmental issues related to this application?
I would make the motion to let the planning board determine the type of action.
I don't know that they can do that.
That they can,
I don't know that they can decide the type of action. I think that's in our purview, really.
Well, can we state that,
well, this is a type 1 action, and normally this would be a type 1 action, in that we'd want to see an environmental assessment form and evaluate the environmental issues. Normally we have type 2 actions, but the planning board is taking lead agency on this, right? I guess that's what's happened here, in effect, for the environmental issues?
Yeah, I think if the applicant were to go before the planning board, they'd still have to come before, the planning board would refer it to zoning board, I would hope, you know, or I would when the permit, you know, the people came to me to.
So do you think they're gonna have to come back to us after planning board for the environmental?
I don't know. I sent them to, you went to planning for an environmental determination, which revealed the applicant needs to go to the planning board. I do that, you know, before anybody comes before you, so that's out of the way.
Well, why don't we make it a type 1 and let them, if necessary, to come back to us for a type 2 after they have their assessment of the situation?
How's that sound?
What do you?
I don't know that you need to do that. The planning board met already.
No.
They have
No.
not seen this application.
Not
I've not
yet.
seen the application.
They came to us first.
They preliminary, had a preliminary look at it.
Okay.
Planning department, they made a determination, this is not
So, but we can,
administrative permit.
what we're doing here is a zoning variance. And so we're looking at the setback and how many feet away we are from the property boundaries and from the street. And as to that, I don't know that we have a large environmental issue. The planning board's purview, they are gonna have a different issue. If we're gonna make a secret determination, we can do it within what we're reviewing. I'd hate
The
to make-
garage is within the 100-foot setback, right?
Well,
The buffer.
The buffer with the 100-foot buffer, right?
we don't, it's not shown here. So that's a good question for applicant.
But I think the applicant has agreed that it is within the 100-foot buffer.
See this line here? That's the buffer.
Where's that?
So the whole garage is within the buffer.
Except for that little corner.
except for a little piece of it.
What, do we, if the order were reversed and this went to planning first,
So this is the back.
what would, how
We-
would that impact our?
Well, we would typically, they would appoint themselves as lead agency. And at that point in time, we wouldn't have to worry about it. And that's what I would typically see, is that planning board would say, okay, we're a lead agency, and we would simply defer to the planning board as lead agency. And we wouldn't necessarily have to make a determination on it. But since
Planning board hasn't met, so they
planning
haven't
board
determined
hasn't
themselves to
met,
be.
and so we can't defer to them if they haven't accepted it. That's the only quirk, but we can defer to them if they accept, and leave it at that. And if not, the applicant has to come back here for a secret determination. But if planning board accepts lead agency, which there's no reason they wouldn't, then they can do that review.
Because, I mean, the way I look at it is, for right now, for us, I guess this is a type 1 action, but we don't have the environmental assessment forms. We haven't made a determination, but yet we still want to vote, maybe, on this structure, on whether we're going to grant the variance.
And the reason that the applicant came here first was a financial one, right? Because it's a more expensive process to go through planning. So if the applicant, based on the board's comments tonight, was fairly comfortable that strictly from the variance point of view, that we didn't seem to have major issues, then maybe they would be comfortable going to planning first, getting that approval, and then coming back here for a
final
vote.
Their final site plan approval was predicated on having the zoning approval. So this is, the normal course is planning board refers to zoning, zoning makes its approval back to planning, and through. So if we want to defer back, if we want to make our approvals contingent upon planning board approvals and their secret determinations, we can do it that way, as a condition of the approval.
I think that might be a reasonable approach.
Yeah.
We'll approve it conditioned upon planning board's approval and them taking lead agency in regard to the environmental issues. If not, then it has to come back to us for an environmental determination.
Right.
I like that.
Does that seem a reasonable approach to take here?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So we're still back to, are we going to issue a type of action or no? I think we're just going to take a motion that we're going to approve it or not approve it, with
Contingencies.
with the condition that you're going to go to planning. They're going to do the site plan review. They're going to make a determination of whether they're going to be lead agency, and address the environmental issues. And if they're not, then it'll get kicked back to us.
Okay.
Okay.
And then after I get that approval, I come back to you for the final determination, huh?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I think has to happen here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Do we have a motion in regard to this action?
Yeah, I think we should have a motion that says we're referring it to the planning board, and we wait to see their decisions.
Second.
But are we, so we're not gonna,
I was gonna make a motion to approve the variances as described.
or do we want to approve the variances
Well, I think we
with the
should,
condition
yeah,
of it
we
going
should-
to the
yes,
planning
we should
board?
certainly do that. We should
So at least
approve
we're
the
giving the
variance.
applicant, because the applicant can
Sure.
go back to the planning board, they could decide if it comes back to us and say, no, we're not gonna grant you the variance. And I don't know how the board's gonna vote, whether we want to grant the variance, but maybe we should give the applicant, you know, a
Yeah.
vote on whether we're gonna grant the variances or not, because if we're not gonna grant the variances, this thing's done.
Right.
And might as well just go home. But if we're gonna grant the variances, then we should probably tell them that, and then we're gonna have to condition our approval upon all the things we talked about, going to the planning board, figuring out the environmental, who's gonna take lead agency, and make a determination on the environmental issues here.
Right.
Okay.
We're gonna let you frame the, frame the decision.
Well, I would do it simply, I mean,
How about you, Bart? You wanna try to put
Yeah.
it together as far as, so are you, what is your, I guess your motion has to start off as, would you grant the variances as indicated, and then what conditions, if any, would you put on it?
so I would move to grant the variances as indicated on the application with the condition that applicant go to the planning board, receive a secret determination, and the planning board adopt themselves as lead agency. And that secret determination is a type 2 action.
Okay, and if the planning board doesn't accept it, then it has to come back to this board
Yes.
for
This
determination.
This variance is contingent upon that determination by the planning board.
Okay. Does that seem to be?
I'll second that.
Does it seem to be a reasonable approach to take here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Ms. DiPolito,
Aye.
Mr. Gio,
Aye.
Mr. Harden.
Aye.
Mr. Lansky.
Aye.
Mr. Newman.
Aye.
Chairman Canestra.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've given you an indication that the variance has been approved, but we still have some work to do with the planning board
course.
and handle these environmental issues, and it may or may not come back to us. We'll see how that works out.
But thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much.
I didn't mean to make things so complicated. Thank you.
Next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the September 17th, 2019 minutes. Any changes or comments, concerns?
No.
Yeah.
If not, I'll approve by consensus. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, minutes for last month's meeting are approved.
Thank you.
I will make mention also that next month's meeting is on Tuesday, December 17th. Hope I have that right, Denise?
Correct.
2019, third Tuesday, and we do have some items on the agenda, so we will be addressing at that time. Any further business? Anything else we have to discuss? Nope. Okay. I just want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see everybody at next month's meeting. Okay, that's it for tonight.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Good night.
And then-